Namaste, YouTube. Today we're going to talk about the truth about yoga for low back pain. Now, I know what you're thinking. Yoga is always good for back pain, right? Well, hold on to your yoga mats because the truth might surprise you. The truth is yoga may or may not be good for back pain. It kind of depends on how you use it. If you're using yoga to strengthen your core or to mobilize your hips, then yes, it can be great for back pain. But if you're using yoga to stretch the crap out of your low back, well, let's just say that might not be helpful. And don't just take my word for it. Dr. Stu McGill, who's a world-renowned back pain specialist, says that excessive stretching of the low back can actually cause more harm than good. So what should you do instead? Well, here are 3 stretches from yoga that can actually help. The hip flexor stretch, the quad stretch, and pigeon pose. The hip flexor stretch can help your low back pain as long as you're not arching your back and compressing it and hurting it in this way. So what you want to do is start nice and tall, tuck your tail, which means engage your core, engage your glutes. The main mistake, as I mentioned, that people make is they don't engage their glutes, they don't engage their core, and they just go into a deep back bend, which can end up hurting their back. So instead, engage the glute, engage the core, come forward a little bit, and make sure you feel a nice stretch here on the hip flexor. From there, you just breathe and relax. Or you can contract, relax, which just means tighten up everything in this area by dragging your knee into the ground for a couple seconds as you hold your breath. Get tight, tight, tight. Get tight, tight, tight. Like I'm squeezing the ground with this front foot and this back knee. Squeeze and release. And maybe even do a little bit of a side bend. So if you do this hip flexor stretch without arching your back, I think you'll find that it helps your back pain. The next good stretch for back pain looks very similar to the hip flexor stretch, which is for the Psoas and the Iliacus. But if you can just reach back and grab your back foot, then now you're gonna get more of a rectus femoris or quad stretch. So all the same rules apply. You kind of do a little bit of a crunch, engage your core, keep your back glute a little bit engaged, and pull your heel towards your butt, and then go forward just a little bit. You can hold it with 2 hands or 1 hand. If you needed support, you could put your hand on the ground, either this hand or this other hand. It kind of depends on what's most comfortable for you. And then you just breathe, sigh and sink, sigh and sink. You also can contract, relax by kicking your back foot into your hand as I hold my breath. Get tight, release, take up the slack, kick, 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 release, take up the slack, or move farther into the stretch. The next yoga pose, which will help your back pain if you do it right, is pigeon pose. So you put your hands down on the floor in front of you, put your leg up in front of you like this. Some people who are more flexible can have more of a right angle, a 90-degree angle. But for a lot of people, they'll want to tuck this foot just a little bit closer to them. And then I like to use this hand to push this back, which kind of sets my hip deeper in the socket. And then I turn my chest towards this front knee. And then I start to come down into what's called a little more hip flexion, chest towards the thigh. You should feel a nice glute stretch back here. From here, you just breathe and relax, wiggle around, finding whatever position is most comfortable. All the stretch should be felt here, no stress on the knee. Some people like to put a cushion or a pad under this thigh or this knee. That's an option if you want. Another variation is to take this hand, twist it through here. I'm actually even twisting my thigh a little bit with my forearm, and then I sink a little bit like that. That gives me a really nice glute stretch feeling. That's another variation of pigeon pose. Some people even like to rest their forehead on their hands like so, breathing and relaxing. Or again, I can tense everything up as I hold my breath. Get tight. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, release. Wiggle around. So if you release those tight glute muscles, that can have a positive impact on your back. So those are the 3 good yoga poses for back pain. So give the hip flexor stretch, the quad stretch, and the pigeon pose stretch a shot. The first yoga pose, which might not really help your low back, is forward folding if you round your back too much. Here's what I mean. So for example, you're here on the ground, you're stretching your hamstrings, you're doing a forward fold. But if you don't have a lot of flexibility in your hamstrings, you might end up forward folding and rounding a lot at your back, which can put a lot of stress on your back until you learn how to lengthen your hamstrings and pull from your hip flexors and not round at the back, but actually kind of lengthen and then fold where all the stretch and stress is on the hamstrings. Then that can be a good stretch. But a lot of people who are new to yoga will just round their low backs, and they might even feel a low back stretch and think that it's helping, but it can actually not be helpful for your low back pain. So what you can do instead is hook up a strap around your feet, or just not go too deep in the stretch, or try a one leg variation where you're not stretching so much your back and you're getting more of a hamstring stretch. And all of those variations could be helpful for your back. But in the beginning, you might want to be very careful with these forward folding stretches for back pain because you can end up making things worse. The next yoga pose, which may not be so helpful for your low back, is a spinal twist. It looks like this. Let's say that you're laying on the ground and you grab one knee and you're twisting like this. What you should know is that the target of the spinal twist should be your upper back. This in between my shoulder blades area, that's where I want to feel the twisting, rotating sensation, but a lot of people end up feeling it in their low back. So if you're feeling the twist in your low back, be careful because you can go too far. I've even seen some people where they're in this position and maybe a new yoga teacher comes and assists them or pushes them farther into the stretch without knowing if they're feeling it comfortably in the right place. So they're here, they're feeling it all in the low back, and then someone pushes them deeper into it and bad things can happen. So be very careful when you're doing spinal twists that you're feeling it in the upper back, not the lower back, and it feels comfortable and safe. The last yoga pose, which may not be so agreeable for your back, is Cobra, this posture, or any kind of back bending, where you're not engaging a little bit your core and your glutes. If I have my glutes off and my core off, I'm gonna hinge at just one segment of my low back, which can really irritate people's back. So if you're gonna do these back bends, make sure that you get your core lightly engaged, turn your abs on, get your butt lightly engaged, and then come up to a comfortable back bend without arching too much and compressing your low back. So be careful with arching poses and cobra poses without glute and core activation. So those are the 3 yoga poses that you want to be kind of careful with if you have low back pain. So remember folks, not all yoga poses are created equal when it comes to back pain. If you're trying to fix your back pain on your own and you're going to use yoga to help, make sure to pay attention to what your body is telling you and choose your yoga poses very wisely. If you want a better science-based approach that I learned from professional and Olympic athletes and that I've tweaked and refined over the past 14 years working with over 20,000 students, check out the 45-day Athletes Back program. And if you want an even more personalized one-on-one approach to fixing back pain, working directly with me or one of my doctors of physical therapy, email support@gotram.com with the title VIP Mentorship, and I'll be happy to share all the details. So that's it. Hope you enjoyed the video. And remember, you're just one step away from building or rebuilding your perfect body.
The truth about yoga for low back pain.